Be easy on my diet, son. You eat it off, don't you? You're go right up.
We're right back at you and in the flesh. It's long overdue. It's great to see you. It's great to see you, Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, Senator Kelly, Representative Candelora, members of the General Assembly, Lieutenant Governor Susan Bisowitz, my fellow state officials, honored guests, and people of the great state of Connecticut. 3 years ago, I stood before you as a new governor, and today, the state's in much better shape than we were 3 years ago, but we still have a long way to go. 3 years ago, we were standing at the edge of a fiscal cliff, facing a $3.7 billion budget deficit, and today we're deciding what taxes to cut and what school programs to grow, thanks to our third consecutive year of budget surpluses. Good man. Look, for decades, governor after governor has increased taxes and fees. In the land of steady habits, it seemed almost inevitable, but it was a habit I was hell-bent on breaking. For 3 years, we've held the line on against broad-based tax increases. This year, my budget cuts taxes for working and middle-class families. We're also holding down the cost of health care, child care, and college tuition, making Connecticut more affordable for everyone. Look, outside observers were accustomed to downgrading our ratings, and even the outgoing budget director said, quote, Connecticut's in a state of chronic fiscal crisis. No more. Over the last 3 years, our budgets have been balanced and on time, resulting in ratings upgrades that have caught the attention of businesses and families ready to move to Connecticut. And thanks in part to your strong bipartisan efforts, we've begun to change the narrative from fiscal crisis to fiscal turnaround. Unlike Washington, we did it together. And that's the Connecticut difference. We did it together. That's the Connecticut difference. And rather than borrowing from the future, we're investing in the future. For years, we've fretted about our outstanding pension obligations. Our budgets are the first in history to pay down billions of dollars against pension debt. And we're delivering strong double-digit investment returns that continue to reduce our unfunded pension liability. Keep it up, Treasurer Wooden. So, how does that affect you? A, that's hundreds of millions of dollars in annual budget savings for years to come. And B, that's hundreds of thousands of retirees who can sleep easier knowing that our pension promises of the past will be kept. In the event of a recession, we have fully funded the budget reserve, aka the rainy day fund, which means Connecticut will not be forced to cut services or raise taxes. We can sleep a little bit easier, thanks to your efforts. We're better off for getting our fiscal house in order. We're investing in our kids and giving them better opportunities at the starting line of life. We're investing in teachers, counselors, and after-school programs to help our kids get back in the game after a long COVID winter. And speaking of teachers, how about a big shout out for the greatest educators in the nation right here in Connecticut? Connecticut teachers showed up. They showed up every day. They showed up every day for our schools, recognizing the importance of in-person learning. Other schools were closed. Our schools were open. Thank you to the teachers. Thank you to the educators. Thank you for making a difference. And for the first time in my life, we have tens of thousands of great jobs ready to be filled. This is a once-in-a-generational chance to give all of our kids, regardless of background, the opportunity of a lifetime. Our budget invests 10 times more money than ever before in workforce development, with a hyper-focus on trade schools, apprentice programs, tuition-free certificate programs, where students of all ages can earn an industry-recognized credential in half the time, with a full-time job, all but guaranteed. This investment will train over 10,000 students and job seekers this year alone in courses designed by businesses around the skills that they need. And this isn't just about providing people with credentials. This is about changing people's lives. A stay-at-home mom whose husband lost his job earned her pharmacy certificate in 3 months. She now works at Yale New Haven Hospital. A man who was homeless was provided housing, transportation, a laptop, and training. He's now a user support specialist at one of our leading technology companies. These are just 2 examples of opportunities that completely change the course of someone's life. And we're working with our partners in the trade unions to develop programs for the next generation of laser welders and pipe fitters, building on the amazing partnership between Hartford Health and Quinnipiac University. We're also ramping up our next generation of healthcare workers. I want students and trainees to take a job right here in Connecticut, and I want Connecticut employers to hire from Connecticut first. So to encourage that, we're expanding a tax credit for small businesses to help repay their employees' student loans. More reasons for your business to hire in Connecticut and for graduates to stay in Connecticut. That's the Connecticut difference. Look, we're training our workforce to get our state moving again, and these 21st century jobs also require a 21st century transportation system. This time it's the President's infrastructure bill with full backing from our congressional delegation and bipartisan support in the U.S. Senate. It will pump billions of dollars a year into Connecticut, which means you won't recognize this state in 5 years. Mark Boughton, get to work. He's leading that effort for us. Union Station in New Haven will be our central transportation hub. That starts this year with express trains that'll cut your round-trip commute to New York City by about an hour. Look, the promise of the 2-way rail service between Bridgeport and Waterbury is already resulting in hundreds of new apartments from Shelton to Beacon Falls, bringing the valley back in all of its glory. And don't forget the recently announced major distribution facility with over 1,000 good-paying jobs on the Waterbury-Naugatuck line. Clean wind energy is our renewable future. It will also revitalize our ports, think New London. And the infrastructure money will further upgrade our seaports and our airports. Last year, I stood at Tweed Airport to watch the first flight from a new airline that's making Connecticut its hub. And Bradley Airport is offering more nonstop destinations than before the pandemic. It is about to cut the ribbon on a new transportation facility. We are making the biggest investments in our roads and bridges in generations. Surely the biggest since Ike, and I like Ike. It is allowing us to speed up our commutes, decongest our choke points, strengthen those old Eisenhower-era bridges, and give you one more reason to call Connecticut home. Businesses are taking a second look at Connecticut, with 28 major employers having recently relocated their headquarters to the state or expanded their footprint here. Thanks to DECD, thanks to David Lamont, thanks to our team. And that's because we have lower taxes than many of our neighbors, more affordable housing, great schools that are open and safe, and a highly educated workforce. Look, infrastructure of the 21st century isn't only concrete and steel used to connect Old Lyme to Old Saybrook. It's also about fiber optic cable and Wi-Fi used to connect Connecticut to the rest of the world. And the infrastructure funding will also extend broadband to those rural and urban areas cut off by the digital divide. We've already added free Wi-Fi to many town greens, schools, libraries, so you can do everything from Brooklyn, Connecticut, that you can do in Brooklyn, New York. Like telehealth, e-learning, telecommuting, these are not just nice to have. These are necessities in 2022. This is as much about fairness and equality as it is about convenience and efficiency. Look, very recently we've been hit by some of the most severe storms in our history. Isaias knocked out power. Ida, Henri dropped torrential rain bombs, causing historic flooding. Our infrastructural investments allow us to make a down payment on flood control and moving our electric substations out of harm's way. We're making the biggest investment in hardening our electric grid against future attacks, be it storms or cyber attacks. A stitch in time saves 9. Remember that. Your grandmother told you that. Look, our electric grid will soon be carbon-free, and our transportation system is soon to follow. Our budget provides for hundreds of electric charging stations as our state transitions to an all-electric fleet. And we're beginning our conversion to all-electric school buses, all-electric city buses, reducing air pollution in some of our most distressed communities, where there's a disproportionately higher rate of asthma. That's what we mean by environmental justice. Look, we're doubling down on our town squares and our urban centers, featuring transportation hubs, great public schools, affordable housing, so you can afford to live where you work and rely on public transportation, not just a car. And working alongside members of the General Assembly, including my friends from the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus, these historic investments in our towns and cities are resulting in the first reduction in property tax rates in decades, including, well, Mark Loretti's here, cuts again in Shelton, they're always cutting there. Also a 20% reduction in Bridgeport, a 20% reduction in the mill rate. Our working families and middle-class households deserve a break, especially from this most regressive of taxes, the property tax. Look, property taxes relentlessly come due in good times and in bad. And they hit the middle class especially hard. This year I'm proposing a meaningful property tax reform that will save approximately $300 million for our taxpayers. There you go. The current property tax credit is too limited, so we're going to double the number of families who can claim it. We're also going to cut taxes on automobiles, so no one is struggling to pay more for a Honda in Hartford than a Hummer in Harwinton. That's going to reduce car tax bills in more than 100 towns, often by hundreds of dollars per car. We're also going to eliminate the income tax on pension and 401k income for most households. Stay in Connecticut and watch your kids grow up from your living room rather than waving at them from the Zoom room in Delray, Florida. Look, we promised also 3 years ago that in order to attract the 21st century workforce, we had to have a 21st century workplace. And that better meets the needs of the modern family. I've always believed working families deserve a raise. And after 2 years of COVID, I believe we all have a better appreciation of how essential our essential workers are. So thanks to most of you, Connecticut is well on its way to a $15 minimum wage, which will continue to grow with inflation, plus an additional tax cut for working families. We'll cut about up to $1,200 per working family, thanks to the Earned Income Tax Credit. Thank you for your support on that. Bipartisan. And look, now that we better understand the importance of being able to securely step away from a job you need to care for someone that you love, and after years of trying, we passed one of the most ambitious paid family and medical leave programs in the country. I know that's what security means to parents and kids. Thank you. Thank you for stepping up for that. Thank you for making a difference. Look, I'm a guy that comes from small business, so I have a real appreciation of how important it is to keep a great employee on the job, especially in this incredibly competitive environment. Paid family and medical leave levels the playing field, allowing small businesses to provide the same level of support as the big guys do. That's important. And by the way, look, in life you get a lot of grief if you're $1 short and a day late. So let's give a shout out to Andrea Barton-Reeves and her amazing team who delivered paid family medical leave on time and under budget. On time and under budget. It doesn't happen every day in government. On time and under budget. Look, stay in Connecticut or move to Connecticut. We're the most family-friendly state in the country. And after 2 years of COVID, too many women have dropped out of the workforce. We need you back. Susan, the Council of Women and Girls, I hope you're on top of that.
Absolutely.
The jobs are there, and we're doing more than ever before to help you keep working and help you raise your family. Connecticut kept quality child care centers open and affordable. Beth Bye, take a bow. Thanks to everything you do. Thanks to the child care workers. Stand up for them as well. Stand up for the child care workers. They showed up every day. They had daycare right next to the hospitals when we need it. Look, our budget is providing tens of millions of dollars to help the next generation of entrepreneurs start their own business, with a special emphasis upon distressed communities. We recently moved up 11 places in CNBC's ranking of the top states to do business. Maybe that's why 2021 alone, 11 places. We still got room to grow. Maybe that's why in 2021, business registrations in this state increased fourfold to 47,584 startups. New businesses launched right here in Connecticut. They used to say that the best social program is a job. Look, even better than a good paying job at a business that you help start in the community where you live, hiring and serving your neighbors. That's the future for our families. That's how we reinvent our local communities. And that's what these new business startups mean. And we're going to make it easier for people to do that. Health insurance should not be a deterrent for those young entrepreneurs with $1 and a dream. Last year, our budget created Covered Connecticut to provide nearly 40,000 more people no-cost health insurance. And now, through Access Health, we're offering big savings to health care for everyone. Go to accesshealthct.com. Accesshealthct.com. Recently ranked the #1 healthcare exchange website in the country. #1. No CT.gov. This is #1. Thank you, James Michelle. Thank you, Charlie Klippel. Thank you for what you do. And subsidies help, but we've got to address the underlying costs of health care. That's what former Controller Kevin Lembo reminded us every day. And that's why I'm proposing legislation with your help to make prices more transparent, safely re-import lower-cost prescription drugs from Canada, and cap runaway drug prices on prescription drugs right here at home. Three in 10 Americans, 3 in 10 report cutting pills in half, skipping doses, swapping out drugs to save money. And that stops now with your help. 2 years ago, we were in the early innings of COVID when we launched the Reopening Committee, led by medical, business, labor leaders alike. And we reopened our state safely without looking back. Our construction sites and manufacturing facilities never closed. Neither did our parks or beaches. Our restaurants and stores reopened as quickly as we could. Our essential workers were heroic in providing daycare, health care, food, freight. So together, we decided on tax cuts for working families, increasing in nursing and group home rates, compensation for essential workers who contracted COVID, and I was thinking $20 million in hazard pay bonuses for essential workers in state government. I was thinking Today, I propose we nearly double that hazard pay budget. I hope employers follow our lead in the private sector, follow our lead in providing hazard pay bonuses to our amazing frontline workers who showed up every day. Thank you. I hope they're watching. All right. So I appreciate the authority you've granted me to keep this state safe for almost 2 years during this pandemic. I'm even more appreciative of each and every one of the residents who stepped up to do the right thing for themselves, for their family, for their communities. Look, we were hit hard. We were hit early. But in each successive wave, Connecticut did better and better thanks to you. Special shout out, by the way, to our outgoing Chief Operating Officer, Josh Jabal, right there, Josh. He helped lead our effort. He was there from dawn till dusk. First guy I called in the morning, last guy I called at the end of the day. He deserves a break, but he's not going far. He's not going far. All right, so now 2 years later, I believe we have the tools and the experience to keep ourselves safe. We're one of the best vaccinated states in the country, and we recently distributed millions of masks and rapid tests nearly overnight. All right, Omicron was a curveball, but our hospitals stayed above water. Our vaccine lessened the severity of the virus. And I've asked you, the legislature, to weigh in on just the last few executive orders which allow us to move quickly in the event of another COVID variant. And before you do, I think you know I've been working with our neighboring governors, and I believe it's time to end the statewide school mask mandate and allow each and every school board to decide what is best for their schools. From a public health perspective, you've earned this freedom. I know that we can do it safely. Our Department of Public Health, Manisha Jitani, she'll provide clear guidance along the way. We know how to live safely in this post-pandemic world. The referee is not going to throw the all-clear sign and say we're zero infections, but we know how to live in this post-COVID world, even though COVID will never be zero. Public safety is right up there with public health as a lead responsibility. And Connecticut remains one of the safest states in the country, although certain crimes are up. Many of the car thefts and other street crimes are a symptom of a population reeling after 2 years of COVID hell. Free summer learning camps and clinics and in-person schools relieve some of the stress for a lot of our kids. But for others, long COVID is playing out in a national trend of fentanyl poisoning as well as vandalism in our schools. Hate crimes have been spray painted on synagogue walls. Suicide and domestic abuse have brought violence right into the home. And here across the country, gun sales and shootings are on the rise. Last May, I was at a ball field in Bridgeport to show support for some young baseball players who the day before were forced to flop belly down on the ground when shots rang out nearby. Thankfully, no one was injured. 2 teams of kids laying belly down on a field, not sure whether it was safe to get up. I was there in the community the next day that chose to stood up and rally for those kids. They understood what the sound of gunfire while playing an innocent game of baseball could do to the psyche of these kids, especially if it went unanswered. We have more damn guns on the street today than ever before in our state. Get these illegal guns out of our communities and let our kids be kids. Let our kids be kids. Thank you. All right, so our budget calls on Commissioner James Ravella, Commissioner of Public Safety, to create a special illegal gun unit working with our neighboring state to track down these big gun traffickers. Look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. You can't be tough on crime if you're weak on guns. don't worry, I also want more cops on the beat. Our 10 largest cities and towns alone are training and hiring nearly 400 new cops over the next 2 years. And we've made sure they have the budget to do it. And as I've done with our state police over the last 3 years, we are adding more female recruits and creating more diverse police force, just like our community police have got to do. More diverse, more women, community policing that is by, for, and above about the communities. That's what community policing is about. Look, those preventative measures only work if the judicial branch continues to speed up criminal cases, so people who pose a risk to the community and themselves are kept off the streets. Please vote early on the outstanding new judges that I'm nominating and support the funding that I have proposed for new prosecutors and new public defenders. Okay, as important as it is responding to crime is preventing the violence before it happens. That's another reason we're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in education, workforce development, and mental health, and mental health, and mental health, and mental health. It's not just summer programs and keeping our schools open during the non-school hours. I mean, many of our schools have also added counselors, since many of these kids just need a shoulder to lean on. Look, and we gave many of our high schools the opportunity to vote on how they would spend $20,000 in Rescue Act funding. Went to Enfield High School, and when I asked how they would invest that money, the student council said their top priority was more confidential counseling. These are high school students. I was thinking Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And they said more confidential counseling. Think about that for a moment. Our budget doubles down on community solutions. Project Longevity in New Haven, Bridgeport, and Hartford have received more funding to reduce violent crime. In Waterbury, the Police Athletic League is letting more police and kids get to know one another before. These programs give kids a friend, they give them some hope, they give them some purpose, and that's the best anti-crime strategy in the world. At the end of the day, what matters most in all this is trust. Trust in your law enforcement, trust in your courts, trust in your government. I will hold anyone who breaches that trust, starting in my administration. I'm going to hold them accountable. I have zero tolerance for any ethical malfeasance. We hold ourselves to the highest standards. If you see something, say something. And if you don't get the response you deserve, give me a call. Over the last 3 years, we've been faced with unprecedented challenges. The type of challenges where people turn to government for leadership, for answers, for guidance. They did so because their lives and the lives of the loved ones depended on it, in ways not seen since perhaps world wars or the Great Depression. I believe Connecticut stepped up, meeting its moment in history when it mattered most, and we did that together. We did that together. I'm immensely proud of our state agencies who, many months there, were working 24/7 at the Emergency Operations Center, Sundays, Saturdays, late, early, and they were there responding to the pandemic. I'm also particularly proud of our first responders, doctors, nurses, teachers, nonprofits, child care providers, all the essential workers who, despite the risk to their own health and safety, put their communities ahead of themselves. Retired teachers and nurses coming out of retirement to pitch in and cover for their sick colleagues. That, my friend, is the Connecticut difference, standing up and making a difference every day. And your vote makes a difference. 4 years ago, hundreds of voters in New Haven waited in hours in the pouring rain, clutching a soaked ballot in order to cast their vote. Well, since then, we've had a couple of elections where voters turned out in force because they could vote absentee and they could vote safely. So following the lead of Secretary of State Denise Merrill, let's make it easier for absentee balloting. Let's make that a reality, not just during a pandemic. Make it easier for people to vote. I like people having a stake in the election. I like them voting. I like them believing in the outcome. I like them knowing that their vote makes a difference. All right, I'm getting there. 3 years ago, I said I wouldn't let the state be defined by a constant fiscal crisis. And while there is much work to do, over the past 3 years, we've turned that fiscal crisis into the Connecticut comeback. Budget deficits have become record-breaking surpluses. Our budget reserve fund is now overflowing, and we are paying down pensions, and we can borrow more money at less cost, and we can return millions of dollars back to the middle class for the first time in a generation. And just as I said I didn't want our state to be defined by a chronic fiscal crisis, we can't let it be defined by a COVID crisis either. And despite the intense headwinds of a global pandemic, we've made significant progress with more jobs created, more families moving into our state, and more opportunity for all. That's the Connecticut difference, and we're going to keep making a difference every day. May God bless each and every one of you in the great state of Connecticut.